The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
All right, let's check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. So, Nick, this is an incredible story. We're hearing that Binance has been hacked, essentially, and according to their blog, they've been drained of about $500 million. What do we know so far?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, so it looks like this was the canonical Binance chain. So I don't know if that's necessarily Binance itself, the company. It's certainly this one tool that Binance created, though. So it is not that this was something other developers built to try and connect with the chain. This was a Binance built tool. It does look like the exploiters or the hackers, whoever they were, seem to have generated a fair number of BNB tokens. You mentioned 2 billion, which they then converted, used to convert to stablecoins and use other bridges to try and move them off chain as quickly as possible, which, is pretty sophisticated. It kind of prevents a chain rollback or from Binance using its own, tools to try and claw back the funds. Now they have to work with, whichever other entities are involved. So, for example, I saw something about them using or trying to create stablecoins on the Aave chain using BNB, which might make it more difficult for them to get the funds back. We were due. I mean, honestly, it's been, a week since the last major multi-million-dollar hack? We were about due for something to happen. We'll see how that goes.
Although this was more $500 million, but at the same time, it seems as if Binance was able to freeze a huge chunk of them. Although just a small amount, it seems, may have gotten away from what one gathers. Doesn't that sort of create another concern, which is, hey, Binance chain might not be, decentralized.
Might not be so decentralized as we thought.
No.
It's shocking that there are benefits to centralization.
I think they were able to freeze 15 validators, the only validators that they have, on a whim, or not a whim, but in an emergency.
Hey, that's a decentralized future.
Well, I feel like this should be a surprise, right? I mean, let's go back a long ways. You all remember the massive Twitter hack of, I think it was like 2019, 2020, when all the verified accounts were being breached and posting things, and it was like a crypto, send us crypto and we'll send you more link, and people did it. At the time, Coinbase took a lot of flack for blocking that address and preventing its own users from doing so. There are benefits to centralization, it would appear, and Binance took a similar route in trying to prevent funds being stolen from it. I think it was its own funds, or Binance's own coins. It wasn't like customers, it wasn't users and investors who owned these coins that were being exploited. Although I don't know for sure on that, so don't quote me there. But there are some benefits to being able to control how your tokens flow and how they are, interacted with. And again, we saw the hackers try and take advantage of the decentralized aspects of other networks to quickly cash out and try and move them around to prevent this exact kind of blocking.
But then you might as well have just like a regular database. Like, what's the point of crypto? What's the point of calling it crypto if it's not really decentralized? I mean, it's like, there are benefits to having the U.S. dollar too. I mean, like you could have it in an FDIC insured bank and you don't have it stolen. And if it does get stolen, the government replenishes the account to up to $250,000. So what's the point? Like, why bother?
Yeah, it's all trade-offs, right? The trade-off here is Binance apparently had a project that was vulnerable to being hacked, and that's bad. But on the other hand, they were all able to try and block some of the funds from being sent out, which is bad from like a purely philosophical perspective. But given the scale and sophistication of the attack, probably good for Binance and good for people who are, putting their money into Binance and into the network.
You think that's why it didn't fall more than 5%? I guess, and since the hack was announced, it's not going.
Prices have never made sense to me.
Yeah, but you don't think it'll spook people from building on the Binance Smart Chain down the road if they, if they're like, hey, wow, this is like $500 million. It might not end up being $500 million totally lost in the sense of it floating around, because if they were able to freeze so much of it. But do you think that it basically, you think it won't have an effect on developers down the road, or at least, well, since you cover regulation, do you think that there might be calls in DC, for instance, that, hey, let's look into this, because that's something that they seem to want to do all the time, something that's in the newspapers?
Oh, yeah. Regulators are absolutely going to be looking into this. The FSOC report, for example, that I've been reading this week, slowly, admittedly, but it had a whole section on hacks and vulnerabilities and things like that, and exploits. This is something that is really top of mind for a lot of regulators. And absolutely, I imagine you're going to be looking at last night's hack and saying, all right, well, what happened here? Could this have been prevented? Is this a platform failure on the part of Binance? Is this a network failure on the part of the Binance chain? Is this an individual failure? Did someone leave things vulnerable? And if so, is there a concern for consumer protection? Is there a concern for financial stability? Is there a concern that this might have a knock-on effect on the rest of the financial world? And these are all questions that they're going to be asking, they're going to be looking into. And we'll probably see a report about this in like a year or two, possibly. Mm-hmm. Because absolutely, every time a hack happens, it is of interest to regulators. And obviously not a good look for the crypto industry if they're trying to convince regulators that crypto is a safe place for people to put their money. And, again, like I said, we were about to, it's been a week. This happens every week, like clockwork. So it's, just kind of like another tick on the list of things that, regulators will say, oh, wow, so maybe it's not quite that safe.
Right. Hard to say that it's good for consumers if consumer protections are constantly under attack. So far we know that BNB Smart Chain resumed operations, and as chain validators adopted a software update that would close the exploit used by hackers to drain funds off chain.